So,
Cool.
Hannah, it's cool to have you at the shop. It's cool to
Oh,
have your
thank you.
energy and like the energy of all your friends here. Um,
Yeah.
Yo, there we go. Let's go.
Woo!
Hey. So you're the first one to actually bring a crew with you. So that's
Really?
dope. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, normally it's just like, oh, come through, be on the
Oh.
podcast, da 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 da, and we'll just talk, right?
Aw.
But this is actually a dope vibe, and it says a lot about you, right?
Aw.
Surrounded by people who enjoy your presence. You have friends that speak like passionately from the heart, as I've
Mm.
noticed in just like being here, like listening to
Mm.
people have their conversations. So I think that's really dope that you
Mm.
brought that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really blessed. It's honestly surreal, 'cause like, yeah, I didn't always have like a lot of friends growing up, and I definitely felt really out of place, like a lot of people, you know. So it's something that I'm actually getting used to, but in the best way possible.
Oh, really?
Like it feels like it makes sense.
Do you have a big family or
No, not at all. Like I was raised by in a single mom family dynamic, and I have an older brother, but we're estranged. He's actually close to your age.
oh
He's
really?
like 13 years older than me.
That's a trip because I also grew up with a single mother and I have two half sisters,
Uh-huh.
which kind of makes them estranged. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
one of my half sisters played like a large part in me like being a very polite person
Hmm.
and like having manners and all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like and then the other one was just like always, they would both give me love, but they weren't like
Mm.
living with me. And so I didn't
Mm.
see them that often. They're like older than me and they had their own
Mhm.
lives and stuff. So
Mhm.
that's interesting,
Yeah, that is
right?
interesting.
When I see you with friends like this, when I see you, I don't know if I don't know if you brought your best friend or whatever, the one you were talking to here, or whoever. Yeah, right. I kind of have like a little vibe there,
Mhm.
but it reminds me of a time where I was like just with my homies that I saw every day,
Yeah.
and those are the best times. Honestly, those are some
Oh.
of the best times. So to see that like with you, that's blessed. That really is. Um,
Thank you for seeing me.
Yo, it's funny too because okay, let's be real. I don't really know you like that.
I don't know you either.
Exactly. But I think that in the short time, I would like to say that uh I am a keen observer of the human, you know?
Own it. Yeah.
Yeah, the human experience, the human
How do
condition,
you
right,
perceive me?
between us, right? Yeah,
Just
that's what
kidding.
I'm saying. No, really, I mean, not to put any labels on
Just kidding.
anything,
Yeah, yeah,
but I think that in the short time that I met you, even before today,
yeah. Mm.
I already like peeped that you're a very observant, a very like considerate, a very polite, a very sort of like imaginative and open-hearted person. And that
Dang.
all came out the first time I met you when you were just up here and it was just me and Jen,
That's crazy.
right? And just the fact that you felt so relaxed in your own skin when you were out here was just dope.
Thank
I
you.
like that about you, and I think that if more people were like that, everybody would be less stressed out.
Yeah, for sure. If I was like that more often, I'd be less stressed out.
Yeah. Okay, so the one thing that I was let's just jump into it, right?
Let's
Because
get
I'm
into
actually
it.
pretty excited about talking to you about a few things. Because you,
Okay.
like, even before we started this podcast, you have been so excited to just like mix it up already, right? You're
Mm.
willing to talk about whatever. So
Mm.
I'm gonna use that, if you don't mind. I think,
No, please.
yeah.
I welcome that.
So because we're from different generations,
Mhm.
but we kind of hold like similar energy. Like my energy is a little bit older, right? But I really wanted to talk to you about toxic masculinity,
Mhm.
right? Because it has been such a huge theme in my life,
Mhm.
being an Asian male, in Asian American male,
Mm.
growing up through like the 90s, right? Where things were just like way less supervised, way less like people weren't like blasting people on social media.
Mm.
Information did not move as fast because it wasn't as widely available so easily and free.
Mm.
So I want to ask you like what your like if you could tell me your perception in any way you like about toxic
Mhm.
masculinity in general and how that plays a role in your life,
Mm.
and then I'll talk about how it differs in my experience.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. Could we take a quick pause for a second as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Do you guys mind
so sorry. It's just a little bit distracting hearing the buzzing. Okay, so the question.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys. The question was,
So I
what
wanted
is-
to talk to you about the difference in our generations, right? Toxic masculinity has played a huge role in my life, and having to work through it has taken me so much time and has created my own culture within myself, and how I respond to all of my sisters around me and all of my friends and family, and all that has completely changed, right? And it's shown me that things like social media and, like, just the general status quo are, it's one of those blankets that you get pulled over your eyes and you have no chance, because that's the way the kind of like the system works in America and around, right? So I want to know how that has had an effect, how you perceive it in your life, because I know how I perceive it and what I've gone through and struggled with it, but I want to know how you see it and what your perspective is on that topic, especially being an Asian female.
There's a lot of, I mean, obviously, there's a lot to it, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the two things that come up first is like it's sneaky and it's sinister, and it affects everybody. It hurts the person who is pressured to embody that toxic masculinity, and I don't know if it's fair to say it hurts anybody more, but I will say it has a really like traumatic effect on the people on the receiving end of that too.
Yeah.
It creates no space for like vulnerability and like human emotion, which is like, it's an undeniable part of your experience. And so to like not even be able to live life as you were naturally meant to be, that sounds like a horrible like internal turmoil to deal with.
Yeah, word.
Personally, it's affected my life through individuals as well. Like, I think if it wasn't for toxic masculinity, my dad would be a different person. My brother would be a different person. And I know that they loved me in ways that they could and that they knew how to, but the ways that they failed to see how they were hurting my mom and myself, like, it's left a lasting impact. And the frustrating part is I've had to do the work to work through that, like, grief and that hurt and that pain and, like, quite frankly, the abuse that, like, my brother and my dad inflicted on our family. And yeah, they'd be upset to hear this, you know, but that's the thing too, is like, it does pull a veil over your eyes, you know, from the perpetrator to the receiver. And it's like, I also did not understand what was going on, but now I like saw the experience for what it was. And unfortunately, like, my brother has not been able to see that, you know?
Really? Okay.
And so that's why, like, you asked, like, I think my friends are a reflection of like who I'm meant to be, but they're not a reflection of like how I was brought into this world,
Right.
or how the world was set up for me, even
Right.
like in my nest. So I do feel very, very special.
That's dope. That, again, I want to bring up your friends because they're also being
Hi,
so nice and quiet and stuff like that. But y'all, look, I appreciate all of you out here too, because the vibe that you bring is open. The vibe that you bring is warm and welcoming. And I feel like because I am also like a teacher, because I teach music, and like every single generation that I've taught after me has been better, has in especially, well, specifically in a social way, right? Everybody's mind opens as time goes on, right? Everybody's more accepting, right? All the bigoted bullshit starts like really just like leaking out, right? And I think that that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. As we move along, people are becoming more accepting. So I appreciate that about you guys. I feel it from you just in the space. So like, yeah, dope. Let's go. Yeah, give it up for yourselves. One time.
I'm not crying, you are.
But you know what? I think one of the main differences in what you described and what I experienced is that in my generation, while it was happening, it felt like nothing was happening, right? And now that we can look back with like our hindsight, it's very much within our generation, women versus men, right? There's a lot of obvious pushback because of the inequality, right? And I think that a lot of people are like generalizing things like, oh well, like there's this femininity has failed us and this and that, not femininity, sorry, feminism, right? And in one way, and they're just looking at all these extremes where they're like, oh well, now masculinity is being like pushed down, right? And it just makes sense though, right? That's a real response. If you just think about a person that's been abused, right? A female that's been abused by a male, would they not push back at some point?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So do they not want to take their power back?
Yeah.
We are humans, so it's an emotional response.
Yeah.
So,
it makes sense.
Right? It does make sense. And I'm not saying that everything should be one way or another, but it does make sense that this would be a response to something that has been kind of like tyranny for a while. But there are, there's push and pull, man. So between you and me, we see like the inequality in it, and I think that our generations possibly deal with it in a different way, because like when you were talking about it, it was very much not specifically men and women, but there was a portion of it that affected you at home that was like male and female. But I think my generation makes a bigger deal out of the divide of the sexes,
like the gender roles,
right? Because that has also evolved since as well, right? Gender roles in general, right? And the way that people identify themselves and like kind of like see themselves. So I think that's crazy. That's really dope that it even comes through in the way that you think about the topic at all,
like the in how we approach the subject.
Just in how you approached it, just with the words that you chose, right? So not to keep it super like deep the whole time, but
I like to get deep.
Yeah, okay, let's go then. Yeah, see, that's what I like about you. It's easy. So yeah, this whole thing is interesting to me. Like, also, the fact that you are an Asian female makes a huge impact on, I think, that whole thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Asian females are just like always like fetishized, and Asian females are always kind of seen as more of a, what's the word?
Subservient?
Yes. In a more subservient role, and you guys are just kind of like automatically placed there, which sucks. But at the same time, those of you who kind of like build up the strength and let your voice be heard, there's something in it. There's something to that, because like in music, contrast is everything, right? In art, in just like observing, contrast is everything, right? Like normal is not bad, but there's a sea of normalcy, right? Normal offers safety, right? But if you really want to like hit it big, you can't be safe all the time. So letting your voice be heard, like I see you as a person who is not afraid to just be that, be what you are, be what you were, be what you will be, right? And you're building on that.
I have no choice.
Right.
I have no choice but to. I feel stifled when I don't express myself, and I'm learning with age how to do it gracefully and how to do it more tenderly. I have a lot of trouble with that with like my partner specifically, so sorry, but because like you know what, speaking of contrast, I actually love like contrast in fashion, contrast in set design with what you're wearing, things like that. But a way that I sometimes perpetrate it in a way that's like harmful is feeling like I'm the only person that can stand up for myself, and so I have to push back. And then in a safe shared space, you don't want to be demanding, and you want to be tender with the person that you're working through conflict with, right? But like because of like toxic masculinity and because of like my family history, and being the only person that could stand up for myself against caretakers, like it was something that I picked up along the way, and it's confusing sometimes because I think it'll still serve me maybe in like a business room or like in a negotiation, right? But like when it comes to interpersonal relationships, like there's really not much room for that. So yeah, it's just something I think about often, like how to be firm and clear with my boundaries without without hurting the other person.
Right. Yeah. I think that that hits on something really personal for me too.
Oh yeah,
Right.
let's
So
hear
like
it.
trailing off of what we were talking about before into this new topic as well.
Mm.
It's like being tender towards other people. I feel like was both a like cultural thing, like an Asian cultural thing,
Mhm.
and a personal cultural thing from my mom.
Mm.
Right. So she's a very tender person and always has been and always will be. And then I think that came from her really being surrounded by our culture, being surrounded by a lot of people who just were able to able to articulate their giving. You feel me? Like in a
Mm.
way where they let you know that they really want to take care of you. They let you know that it's really no trouble. They let you know that they like even before you think about it, they want to be serving you,
Mm.
right? And I
Mhm.
think that's a very it's very cultural for a lot of different cultures, I would have to say, right? It's easy for me to stand on my soapbox and be like Asians, let's go, right?
Mhm.
But I've seen the same in every culture in their own way, in everybody's own way. There's a warmth, and you see it in the family hearth,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But that to me also is a reflection of all that stuff that I have had to work through. And
Mm.
so like we said before, like the pendulum swings, right?
Mhm.
Like there's always like a reflexive blowback, a reflexive pushback,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm among a lot of the guys who are just like, oh, that is an atrocity. I don't want to be like that. I want to respect my sisters. I want to respect everybody around me.
Mhm.
And sometimes you get into your head like, oh, well, especially if you're the type of person who's very, very keenly aware of social cues,
Mhm.
right? It's tough. It's tough because it's like you see a lot of things that people don't even realize that they're doing, right?
Blows my mind.
It right, the roll of an eye,
Drives me
like
crazy.
they think that you're not looking when they kind of like turn away, stuff like that. Like the position that they stand in a group, if they put
Mhm.
their back to you, if they have a certain tone of voice when they're talking to you,
Mhm.
all of those things matter. And I think that like we are all, it seems like we're all kind of like aware of those things in this room because I kind of like see that coming from you guys. um and that plays a role too. It's like you said, I see opportunities in business to either take advantage of or to lay back or to be kind, but like where do we draw that line where you it just becomes, oh well, I'm this way now. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I know who I am now, and that does not serve me.
Yeah.
That does not, where do we draw the line where we're just like, oh well, I'm gonna use that for my gain, or I'm gonna pull myself back too much, right?
Mhm. As a
So
defense
as a defense
mechanism.
mechanism, yeah, and to again stay safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I see you on that, like how you talked about, like, oh yeah, like how am I gonna navigate this, right? And in
Yeah.
becoming myself, I feel like a lot of that been made a lot more clear, right?
What has made that clear for you?
Going through hard times,
Okay.
going through bad times, because
Some people don't come out the other side this way.
no, but they I think given time, you
Mm.
can, right? No matter
Mm.
what. Um, I think that when you're in the green pasture of your life, like the good part, not like the ending pasture, it's like the sunny hills, the sunny grasslands of your life, the golden sun and all that.
Yes.
It's easy to be your best,
For sure. Yeah.
right?
Because you're happy.
It's easy to be giving. Yeah, exactly. You're happy, you're magnanimous, you're like, oh man, everything is so good. I'm relaxed and all that. But when you see yourself in the darkness enough, you really get to know yourself.
Ooh.
Because when it's sunny, you can just like meet all your ideals. When it's dark, you can be kind of a shit person.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you can allow yourself, you know what I mean? But it's like that happens sometimes. And that's where you find your boundaries. That's where you find
Mm.
where you can either push to get better, or you can just kind of like, oh, I just know I'm gonna get hangry, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna wanna go somewhere soon.
Mhm.
And when I want to go somewhere soon and I'm hangry, like it needs to happen. So then
Mhm.
all these things start coming out, right? The dark parts of you. So I mean, it's funny, but you really just have to face that and not be like afraid of it and be like, oh, well, I don't want to be that person. That's not me. That's not me. Right?
Accepting
Yes.
that that's just who you are. I think it's like kind of ironic too, because the sooner you accept that that's just a part of you, the sooner you can just deal with it.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't always have to be a big deal, you know? Like I want to, speaking of normalcy, like I want to normalize feeling spoiled. I want to normalize like being hangry, and it's okay because we'll just get food, you know? Like I can work on my patience and you can work on us going there faster.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Dude, it's kind of rare that I will feel comfortable. Maybe this is a me thing, right? You tell me how you feel, right? It's normal that I feel comfortable just being like ugly in front of somebody.
Oh.
And knowing that we're just gonna work it out. You know that feeling?
Oh, yeah,
where it's
because
like,
you have to trust them.
Exactly.
That hold space to meet you where you're at. And also trust yourself that you have the ability to, like, you know, grow.
Yeah.
With grace.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I don't even know, like, among your friends or whatever, among my friends, there are a certain select group of friends that I've built a lot of trust with. And I feel like, oh, well, I can just be kind of a dick sometimes if I'm feeling like cranky or whatever. I'm not going to direct it towards them, but they'll know me, and they'll even celebrate me for those times where I'm just like, in effect, I'm almost like I'm basically standing up for myself and how I feel. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah,
like
yeah.
Letting yourself feel okay to just like not have to smile all the time, not have to make people comfortable 24/7, right? So in those moments, I feel like that's life. That's how you know yourself. That's how you can kind of like feel where you're gonna go in the times where you can't control yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So if you get to know your darkness, you truly get to know yourself. Right?
That's true. Yeah. That's actually like a new thing that I'm exploring too. And to be honest, I'm really scared of people getting to know that side of me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Why are you surprised?
I don't know why. It just kind of struck me. Like, I never really thought from that perspective of just like, oh, do I really? I guess I'm scared too of people really getting to know my dark side. But my dark side's pretty dark. So you know what I mean? It's rare that I let it out fully in front of people.
I mean, there's a time and place. So a lot of the times it's not the time or place. And I've learned that over the past couple years as well.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think a big thing that a lot of my friends and I have been exploring is like giving people a chance to love you when you're not at your best, because you're not a celebrity in your friend groups, you know, like, you know, I just love connecting with people and like being vulnerable with people, and when they feel safe enough to do the same with me. So sometimes it's one of those things where it's like, maybe I can lead with example, like to myself, you know.
Yeah.
I can dip my toe in it, share something with somebody, and see how they react. And most of the time I'm surprised because it's met with a lot of tenderness and understanding. And I think it's really important to like give people a chance to love you, you know? 'Cause like, we're lovable.
That's so beautiful. You got to give people that chance to love you. That's dope. Honestly, yeah. If anything, like, we can take that with us every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Give people that chance. Otherwise, you know how sometimes we do this thing where you're like kind of annoyed and people are like, "Oh, well, do you want me to da-da?" And you're like, "No, it's all good." Right? That's a very micro way of not giving people that chance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Emily offered to do my homework for me, which I'm not going to let her do. But if I could,
how could she?
I would.
So rude.
She would give me A's too. That girl's so smart.
Yo. Yeah, community support. That is
yeah.
a real community, right? We all succeed.
My degree's a group project. No, it's really not. It's really not.
Yo. Yeah, Jen is with us on this. Yup.
Hi.
She said I do that all the time.
Spency. That's my partner.
Yeah, let's go.
He's tuning in from Coachella.
Oh, from Coachella? Let's go. Okay.
Lucky bitch. Just kidding.
Hey. Let's go. Oh, but by the way, like I was saying, if you want to go to a music festival, go to one outside of America. people are polite. Like when we went to Cambridge, if somebody had to move out of my way, they would apologize.
Good.
That's what I'm saying. It feels good. It feels natural. We're all trying to be polite to each other. We're all trying to consider each other's feelings, even though people are like in a K-hole, like floating by me and stuff like that. They're still very polite, and it's like a one whole community.
Aww.
It's dope, and it's good music.
Actually, that's a thought that I had earlier when we were talking about like pushing back harder than someone coming at you sideways. I think that's a very like American thing, because like our society is built on, I mean, to generalize, like our society is built on a set of cultures of being independent, of being tough, of being unbreakable. Right. And so it's like when someone tests you, like instead of meeting them with like compassion, which doesn't mean letting them walk all over you.
Right.
It's not, those are not the only two options of like, hurt or be hurt.
Yeah.
I think that's a very like American thing, which is, it's like muck in our waters. That's what it feels like, because it's so intricately integrated into our lives.
I think to comment on that, like the top 1%, right, are not super young.
Yeah.
Top 1% are people who've had the opportunity to stick around and amass wealth, and then use that to leverage themselves to amass even more wealth and more and more and more, right? So like recently I watched a video on YouTube, some interview.
Nice.
And yeah. And I think what was said was that if you just look at the trends in everything, the top 1%, it's always 1% of the population is this, and the rest are like this. The 1% is like this. 1% is super successful because success begets success, right? It makes it easier. Power begets more power, like, and even weakness begets more weakness. It can, right? And the other side of things.
Yeah.
But I see that in capitalism, what you're talking about. I see that in like in all these things that people have set up and become powerful to the point where nobody can touch them because they just like own so much real estate in more than one way.
Yeah, you physically couldn't reach them.
Right. So we're kind of built on that. Like the people who succeed really success.
Loneliness.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Isolation.
Putting your head down and working so hard and not like.
It's miserable.
It is kind of miserable.
I go through periods of not only working, but like primarily working, and it always brings me back to the same conclusion, the same question of, what is this for? Is this worth it?
Yeah. I mean, during my lifetime, I think pretty early I realized I wanted a life of balance instead of life like, instead of the life that my parents, my earlier generation were like, no, you got to do this to succeed, because that's all they knew. When they came here, they had to we all know the story, right? They came here, they had to sacrifice, right? And then now after having a little bit of space and a little perspective, we can see all the sacrifices and why they're the way that they were, because they had to be. And that puts you in a certain psychological place that it's just gonna be that way. You're so stressed out because you're sacrificing for your family, for their future, and now we know what that really means, because now we have generational wealth. Now we physically feel the efforts that they put in. My generation could not physically feel it unless you came and you started like, I don't know, like a donut shop or like a laundromat like in the 70s or something like that, or the 60s, and then you just blew up and you were rich, right? That was business mindedness back then, right? People who were keyed in. But for the most of us, I think that we didn't understand like what was going on. We just saw stress, we just saw abuse, we just saw like mental toughness. We just saw a lot of these things, positive and negative. And now that it's really played itself out, I'm really like, a lot of my generation are trying to heal those wounds by mending our relationship with our families, with our parents, with our siblings, and stuff like that. And I see that a lot of my close friends and family, they're having children, and they're raising those children with more emotional intelligence, so that they can become more well-adjusted into this world.
Yeah, plant those seeds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, that's why I think every generation after my own has an advantage, has like this beautiful perspective, because we are now really integrated instead of just something that got added on, right? We came here and we made a place for ourselves.
Like
So
the space, like Baba's house.
exactly. Thank you. Full circle. Let's go.
I have 2 questions for you.
Oh, please.
Following up with that. The first is, what makes you feel wealthy? You talked about generational wealth.
What makes me feel wealthy? Number one is money, and then number but like, but
When the Cal Academy check hits.
you know, when that nightlife hits hard. No, but truly though, right? Wealth is wealth.
Yeah.
That includes money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But also, like,
let's not lie to ourselves.
yeah, let's not. No, really. I mean, money has a huge impact on us in our lives,
It's
right?
access.
Especially being able to just see it so clearly in America. We're here. We can make money. We can make things happen. We can turn nothing into a $1 million online only business that you had to just like work on real hard for about 5 years, and now it's upkeep if you played your cards right, right? If you knew, and that's America. And I feel like what I've learned in my personal life is that love, friendship, all these things. If you can get by and you don't feel stressed out because you don't have enough money, let's just say that's the bottom line, right? To me, because there's all manner of stresses in your life, and you can perceive that however you want. That could be 30,000 a year, that could be 60, that could be 100, that could be 200, a million, whatever. As long as you perceive that you are safe, you are kept, you have people around you feeding you with the things that you need in your life that you would love to have, so that you can keep your vision clear, and so that you can feel that feeling of humbleness, but also being infinite in this world, but also not being infinite in this world. You feel me? Like, in your mind, you can be infinite, but you've got to know what's real.
Well, there are very real, limitations, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
Like the laws of science.
yeah. Also, just the context of where you're at, your environment, the resources that you do or don't have access to. That's a very real thing to consider too. Yeah. And it's valid too. Yeah.
I think also there are different seasons of being wealthy, because there are different seasons of life. So
I have a hard time accepting that. I just want to feel wealthy all the time.
Yo, you seem wealthy to me right now.
Oh, thanks.
You know what I mean? This is wealth. This is a kind of wealth, right?
It is, yeah.
And I think that, like, so for me, as I look back and then look forward and look at where I am right now, it's like you grow up being kept, right, by someone or another, or by yourself, right? And then you move to a place where you can take care of yourself. Then you move to a place where you can take care of a family. Then you move to a place where you can take care of a community, right? That is the vision. And I think that a lot of wealth lies within that track as well.
If you're open to seeing it.
Yeah,
like
if you're open
you said,
to it.
Perspective is really important, because you could have all the things that you wanted on your dreams wish list, but if you're too, whatever, to not be able to like appreciate it in the moment, it might as well not even happen.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right? So yeah, I mean, if you can really think about it in those terms, if you can't take care of yourself, you're not wealthy. Right?
Yeah.
That's stress.
Yeah.
If you can take care of yourself, that's a place to start. That's a place to start building your wealth.
Yeah.
Right? There are a whole host of other things to feel wealthy about, right? But I think to be a person in society, the goal is to take care of yourself, and then a family or whatever, like whatever you call your family. It could just be friends, right? It could be you and your pets,
or whatever. It could be your vision.
Could be your vision.
It could be like
your dream.
The impact that you want to have on the world too.
Right. Like, I'm not talking about like a quote unquote nuclear family. I'm just talking about like, whatever you constitute as family, whatever you constitute as you taking care of yourself and like living some part of your dream, right? Because you have to make certain things happen to even like make that dream any kind of reality, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the path of the narcissist, right?
Ooh, interesting.
The narcissist only sees themselves. They're taking care of themselves, and I feel in dealing with other like people that have this kind of trait, it's
Yeah.
like they're always in survival mode,
Yeah.
right? So that's where they harness the
Unfortunately.
darkness from, and then you kind of just like nothing's ever your fault, you know.
Oh, I'm big on accountability.
That's good.
I think
I think.
some of my friends would tell you that. 'Cause I've had support along the way, but to be completely frank, like I've been able to get to this point because of my own determination.
Let's go.
And that's sort of a different narrative than I think a lot of people hear coming from someone who looks like myself, who is supposed to be humble and never accept compliments.
Oh.
And to always be like, oh, no, I didn't do that. Or like, no, that's not true. Like, I'm not special, you know? Or like, I don't have taste, but I do.
I mean, I hella feel that actually, because that's how I am. And it'll come out, you know what I mean? It'll come out when I feel safe. But generally, that's kind of how I operate. I'm always like, no, it's all good, man. Like, don't worry about it.
Do you like that? Is that something you want to change?
I think it's just reflexive.
Oh.
So, you know what I mean?
I see. Subconscious in that way.
I think that I would like to change it. If you're really asking me, I think I would like to change it. But I think that I would like it to come from the truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I feel so comfortable, like, owning my power when I do.
Because you built it yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
And it doesn't come from a family nest. It doesn't come from like other people telling me who I should be. I actually don't respond well to that. I don't like people telling me who I am.
Imagine that.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say, I think like the more you lean into yourself, the less like that type of noise exists in your life, which is kind of beautiful. Like obviously, like when you're younger, there's a lot of noise from your peers. There's a lot of noise from media, from society telling you like what you should be, what you should look like, what you should do, and how you should feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really interesting to reflect on this because like through leaning into myself more in the past like year and a half, this is like a very new version that you're actually engaging with right now. I think it's always been inside of me, but like, life experience has dampened that fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like there is this invisible like force field that has just built up, like not even from me being like, oh, I'm gonna set my boundaries with every single little thing that I see or like every single person. It just like, people are attracted to like things, right?
Yeah.
Like you were saying. So sometimes I am confused and like shocked when I encounter spaces where people are not open and people are not creative. People don't welcome conversation. I'm like, oh, that's actually like pretty common. That's pretty normal.
It is pretty normal, and it's distressing.
It's distressing, yeah. But like, think about how lucky we are to not feel that way on like a regular basis, So I think that's worth celebrating too.
I think also, I mean, a lot of people don't feel that way on a regular basis, though, And there's a period in my life where I really felt that way, where it's like I just had to contain myself because on top of all of the other stuff that people are just expecting me to be, I still had my problems. I still have my problems. And sometimes all of that can be a very heavy weight. And just you getting by the way you want to be perceived is tough enough sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you're saying is if you can create a community and a life and a momentum where where you can kind of keep that in your life and so you can stay free. I think freedom is like so covert these days.
Interesting.
Yeah, the way that people think about freedom is so different on so many different levels.
Yeah.
But the way that you're telling me, what you're talking about right now, and where you can just mostly in your life live with a sort of feeling of just being yourself, letting that be open, and having like only friction when it comes to like people who are telling you what you should be, like how to feel and stuff like that. That's a form of freedom.
That's true.
And you feel it. You're like, right?
Mhm.
The opposite feels so obvious,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so I think like a lot of people think about freedom like financial freedom. They think about like freedom like I can just like travel somewhere or like, you know, and those are
Mhm.
all very real forms of freedom. But to me, it's those moments like if you're on stage and you can let go, if you are in the moment with your friends and you don't have to worry about a thing, that's freedom too. And those are the moments that I really cherish about that, about like
Mm.
being frictionless in the way that
Mm.
you've built your life,
Mm.
right? So you
Mm.
create all these ways to be free no
Mm.
matter what you're doing,
Mm.
which is beautiful, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like what you were saying earlier too. The way some people just carry themselves, they bring that into any room that they enter. You know, it's like that's
Yeah,
something that like no one can take away from you if you decide that no one can take that from you.
right. And so let me ask you some questions then, because you seem like you've got this amazing momentum built up beneath you,
Whew,
right?
it's tiring.
Nah, man. Nah, yeah, no, I will acknowledge. Yeah, I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that it can be tiring.
To be
It
honest,
can be.
I
Yeah.
got a little sick this morning. I was
Really?
telling my friends on the way here that I think I got stress sick. Like I had body chills, I had cold sweats, and I almost wanted to ask if we could reschedule
Yeah. Okay.
from momentum building.
Let's go.
But
Was
we're
it
here.
just from like a social anxiety type of thing or what?
Not at all. Well, I mean, I was definitely like, a little like, ooh, what's gonna happen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you do create a safe space, and I think from our first like real interaction with each other, I felt really comfortable. So I want to thank you for that.
No, absolutely.
Means a lot, especially
My
coming from a
pleasure.
dude.
Yeah, I feel that too. Oh, let's talk about that. Okay. So, being a dude that is around a lot of women, you know, just in our space, just
Yeah.
because people come through, many different various people come through. It's funny navigating this area because before I would have to worry
About
just about being perceived, about like in my transition of becoming a male that was just locked in that system.
like hyper masculine.
Not hyper masculine.
Okay.
No, because that's different from what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Okay.
about expectations
Okay.
of like and labels that people put on you.
Mhm.
Just being a dude.
Mhm.
Just being a dude, right? The whole
Just a
like
dude.
yeah, never showing weakness. Here's my flow chart of the past, right?
Mhm.
So before I perceived masculinity like this: never show weakness. Once you show weakness, right, you're useless.
Oh.
Once you're
jeez.
useless, you're not a man.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
That's
'Cause
harsh.
dudes are always like had always been expected like you have to always be doing something. You always have to be useful, and then you always have to be strong. You can't show emotions because then people perceive you as you're already crumbling,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so that's toxic AF.
Mhm.
Like real bad. So that leads to a lot of awkward situations when you're trying to transition out of that. When you're learning a lot about yourself, like how how can I be respectful and also also not send the wrong message,
Oh yeah.
right?
For sure. Yeah.
As a dude
Yeah.
to a woman,
Yeah.
right? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, because like sometimes you end up interacting with people who identify as like, maybe like a cis woman,
Right.
straight woman,
Right.
where they're operating under like the same sort of rules, which is like, oh, if a guy's nice to me, that means he likes me.
Right.
When he's just being a decent human, hopefully.
Right. And so I would say that I'm a really kind and warm person.
I know someone relates to that.
Hey, I've been feeling you. Yeah, I've been feeling you. But you know what I mean? Like, how do you, as a kind person, and how do you just? You know what I mean?
I think you gotta
I
not.
run into it a lot where people get confused about my intentions just because I'm nice, and
Yeah.
they feel like, oh, well, only my boyfriend should be this nice to me. You know?
Well, that's not your responsibility.
No, it's not. But it does add social pressure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it like not so fun because then you have to consider those things. And then again, it's like sometimes because of how someone might take it, unfortunately, like you might want to, or not want to, but like you might just water yourself down a little and not be as like open
That's
as
the
you would
danger.
like to be.
That's the big danger. So because you started
Danger.
it off with like so you started it off with saying like you've built up this force field that protects you from that kind of bullshit. At least mitigates, right? At least mitigates. And I respect that. I really do. because
Thanks.
like I said before, you're welcome, you deserve it.
Mm.
Because like we said, you built it up yourself, right? So I think that like coming from where I came from, it has been difficult to navigate those waters for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, I'm like at this place where it's like, okay, whatever, I am what I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that I would still see these things happening on the day to day,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm just trying to be nice, and like other people, even in your generation, will respect me less just because I'm acting one way and not another, because they perceive me a certain way.
Interesting.
Isn't that, yeah? Like, let me give you an actual example.
Okay.
So using the same thing that you were talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
So as a partner in this shop,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here at the desk, or I'm welcoming people, I'm greeting people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jen has this amazing female, like strong female energy, and
She's a boss.
she is a boss, right? And she has been for as long as I can remember. But when people come into the shop, sometimes they expect me to be a little bit more upstanding, right? And I'm really just trying to make you feel comfortable. I'm trying to bring you things. I'm trying to clean up after your mess. I'm trying to like look you in the eye and give you a nice warm smile.
Not eye contact.
You know? Oh no, not that. That's a whole nother subject too.
Yeah.
Eye contact, right? You feel that? Right, especially between men and women. That's a thing. I like to look people in the eye.
Same.
That's respect to me.
Same.
Like if I'm not looking you in the eye, I'm in my own head, and maybe I'm not present, right? There's also that. But if you're like looking people in the eye, I know this is different. We're on a podcast, right? And these are your friends. But when you look other people in the eye, like it's easy for those things to be mistaken. Now, none of this really matters, but it does. You feel me?
Yeah.
It's social interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does matter.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that stuff? Because like I love the force field. You know what I mean?
I think I feel pretty comfortable with coming on so strong because I know that I'm actually like a pretty bubbly person.
Yeah.
And I'm like a joy activist. Like I am here for the pleasures and like the happiness and the laughter that like life has to offer.
Yeah.
That's not all that like I care about, obviously, but because of that, like I'm like, okay, there's a balance, you know? I'm okay with being like a strong facing like female because if anything, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of saucy.
It is. And we love that. We love that energy.
Yeah.
Like I do personally. When people come out, like, for example, I'll name names. My friend Ginger.
Oh,
Ginger Santa. She's the shit.
She's so funny.
She is the sauciest.
Yes.
I fucking love that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still get intimidated by like these types of people though, even though I would identify as one.
Yo.
Which I think speaks to how like not as frequent these characters can be. And that's sort of like my form of other than joy activism, I think that's like how I like to show up as an activist as well. I don't mean that in the sense of like institutionally or like being in protests, and I don't want to take away from like the power
right
and amount of like self-sacrifice that type of work gives, you know. But I believe that like we all have the potential to have a ripple effect. Actually, you do, whether you like it or not.
You do,
whether you
yeah.
want to accept it or not. Like
Yeah.
you could either be the reason why someone has a new spark and think like, oh, what if I actually appreciate myself and like treat myself to a chocolate today, you know? Like I think it's that's part of the reason why I also just want to be myself and like lean into that more and more, because it also shows other people that it's possible. I didn't really have examples of that growing up, unfortunately. And so I definitely feel a difference when more and more people like that have come into my life.
That's dope. More and more people that like accept that kind of energy and bring that energy too, right?
Yeah. Like showing by example, simply by being who they are, you know, like simply by doing what they do. It's showing you that like dreams are possible, and dreams are really just things that we don't have physical examples of yet, you know. Like it probably does exist,
Yeah.
but maybe it's not local to you.
I feel that.
And I hope to do that for myself too.
That's dope. Yeah, to be
Self-generating energy.
exactly, yeah, to be your own proponent, to be your own like representative of that joy, right? That's beautiful. Um I think maybe like we've reached a really good point. Do you have any other questions to ask me about like anything? I'm an open book.
Yeah, let's end with a 101 Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it.
What sorts of pressures did you feel growing up, like from that toxic masculinity perspective, and like that doesn't exist in your life anymore?
Whew. That's kind of a lot,
It's
actually.
like skimming the scum.
Yeah.
soup.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll take the bad fat. It's kind of a lot of it is tied to what I was talking about before. What like finding what your worth was as a dude. Like, in those times is very much based around like certain achievements and certain social statuses. And so
were there specific things for you?
For me, yes, absolutely. So I grew up as a musician off the bat. And my mom I was like 7 years old, and I remember me and my mom like dropping my dad off at the hospital because my dad had always been sick. So, my dad passed when I was 9.
Oh shit.
And so that's why I had a single mom, right? So on the way back, though, I remember asking my mom, like, hey, can I play the violin? And she was like, well, okay, but are you sure you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer? You know what I mean? It's classic. It's a classic thing. And at that point, I was like, no, I want to play violin because my mom's a piano teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's music in the family. She went to school for piano, and I went to school for violin, and
That's sweet.
Yeah, it is. I love my mom. My mom is actually the single strongest independent Asian female in my life. She has set a really great example for me, and she has never asked for anything in return. Right, so
I love a good
this
mom.
day, yeah, right. We love a good mom. We love it. I don't know how she does it. She's like strong to a T. If she shows like that negative stuff, she shows it to me, but it's not. Now I understand, right? She's a noble creature. So, for me, going back to the actual question that you asked me, those symbols, like facing toxic masculinity has been hard socially most of all. Now, like not now, but like leading up to now. Now it's good because I'm secure in myself and I'm secure in the things that I have built up in my life. I've got my like own baggage from before, but those things include stuff like, oh, am I worthy? Am I good enough in this respect? Like, my mom raised me as a competitive person, so I'm like comparing myself to other people. It's all like this really toxic stuff. But like I said before, to really know who you are, to really know that stuff and give, like you said, give people an opportunity to love you as you are, I have to just be that person. And hope that people understand when I'm growing, right? And that growth will never end. So it's stuff like that where it's like, oh, well, to be respectful, to create a very welcoming experience, to create like to still be myself in being very mindful of other people's feelings, because I'll never change that. That's something that both hurts and makes me really happy. So it's a sacrifice that I don't want to put down, So toxic masculinity has taught me a lot, and to respect people as they are, to like not look at people as anything other than people, right? It has taught me that, and I'm really grateful for that because the system fucks you up. It fucks you up, man. It makes you see people as a commodity. It makes you see people as just what the media shows you, right? Which is not a person. They're just whatever you're seeing, right? There's no human part of that, right?
Yeah.
So, and how about you? I'll turn it back on you. The
What's
question was, I already asked you this though about toxic masculinity. Actually, you asked me about that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question then. So, what is something that you would say to someone of my generation to take for the rest of their lives?
Oh, that's so interesting because I think, like, again, to generalize in Asian cultures, the younger generations are never supposed to tell the older generations anything, like what
Right.
to think.
Right.
Like, the fact that you even spoke is really brave of you, you know? It took me the longest time to finally understand what talking back meant. My mom just like kept reprimanding me, and I was like, "Why is she hurting me? Like, I don't get it. I'm just trying to explain."
Mhm.
Something that I would share. That's kind of a tough one because there's so much that I want to learn from older generations, but I'm sure like there's a lot.
I'm giving
that I can
you
impart as
you
well.
permission to put down the respect, right? The flag
Oh,
of respect,
Thanks.
and just go into what you really feel,
Go in
and just
deep.
be just like tell me whatever. I'm not sitting here judging you, saying like, oh well, you better be respectful, otherwise I'm gonna be angry.
Oh, I
right?
don't take that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But thank you
You know what I
for
mean?
making that known. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like
would
I
say
respect your point of view.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that means a lot. Likewise.
Thank you.
I think the younger generations, like even if they don't have a lot of things figured out as far as like how society works, like taxes and normal things like that, right? Like just because someone doesn't have that aspect of their life on lock, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. It doesn't mean that they don't have they don't have something to teach you as well. So I think the biggest thing actually is to ask more questions and to listen, like truly listen.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to talk over people. A lot of people don't know how to actually listen. There's eye contact, right? There is facing your body towards the person. There's I think like engaging active conversation means it's not just two people throwing statements at each other.
Yeah.
It's being curious.
Yeah.
And like you're not really, stay with the times. In order to do that, like you gotta ask people what's going on.
Right? People get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think the getting stuck part is often a coping mechanism.
Because it's comfortable.
Because it's comfortable, and because you see yourself becoming out of date if you're not with the times.
Oh.
Yeah, right? It's a real thing. Anybody can feel that way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you just look back one generation, if you look up one generation, you're just like, oh, well, it's different,
Yeah.
right? And now I feel some way,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You just gotta be real with what's real today.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And another thing that I'm hearing from you when you talk about like, oh, well, just because we don't seem like we have everything on lock doesn't mean that we're like dumb or lazy or whatever. It tells me that y'all feel a lot of social pressure to have already accomplished something by this point.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Every day.
Right? Because the trend keeps getting younger and younger. Everybody's like, it looks like everybody knows what's going on social media.
Totally.
It looks like everybody's making hella money. It looks like everybody's amassing their generational wealth, right? But, I mean, that's just everybody showing their best, right?
That's true. And this is the last thing I'll say about this. I think there's like an unspoken pressure to be like, your version of perfect. And if you're not your version of perfect, then you're lazy or you're not put together. When in reality, I think a big part of it is lack of resources.
Yeah.
Like having people in your life to show you how to do these things, how to take care of yourself the way that our society demands. If you don't have that luxury, it's really hard figuring it out for yourself,
Nobody's going to tell you how the economy works, like, in a random conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, nobody's going to tell you how to, like, buy stocks.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's going to say, oh, look, the economy, we just entered a recession. And what does that mean?
Right. And, like, how does that affect you? How should you pivot from that? Like, does that mean you're going to have to change your, like, scale your lifestyle? Those are real things to consider.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
put on my teacher hat for just 30 seconds and say, like, but I mean, some of us may already know that the reason why nobody tells you that these days is because it's been hushed on purpose, because the way we got our money as America, like off the backs of other people, and through making deals. For example, the reason why the American dollar, this is what I learned about the economy, okay? The reason why the American dollar has been really strong up to this point is because we invaded the Middle East and struck black gold, a lot of oil there. We claimed it through war, and then we forced everyone to trade that oil through the American dollar.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And just recently, the other countries are trying to destabilize that. So that's like another reason why I kind of learned about all this stuff. So how is anybody going to just tell you that randomly? I mean, I know I just did that, but, right? But I'm trying to make a point is that like knowledge of economy and literally how making money works. My mom didn't tell me about that. She was just trying to make it work herself. Yeah. And so I think
Stronger together.
Exactly. So now that we have more access to information, I literally just looked this up on YouTube. That's it.
I love YouTube.
Yeah, I love YouTube too. But I think that just those things should be taught in school.
Yeah.
Those things should be normal for everybody, because then other people who have like the advantage of like having that in their family, having that like,
That's
as
that's
a
a form
legacy.
of generational wealth.
Exactly. And now we have the knowledge, so we can start building that stuff, right? So stuff
Spread
like
the
that.
word.
Yeah, exactly.
Let everyone know
Yo.
why we're in a recession. Just
Exactly.
kidding.
I think the shortest answer to that, the biggest answer why we're in a recession, is because we printed a lot of money to give to people to keep the status quo quiet. Anyways, this is not not a strictly political podcast, but I do appreciate the fact that you're open to it.
Aw. I like learning things.
Yo, and I'm going to get off my soapbox and thank you for spending your time and bringing your energy and your community. Thank you all for being here and being open-minded. Hey, woo! Let's hear it for Hanna.
Woo!
Let's go. Oh, what's up, Patrick? But yeah, I think that's a pretty good stopping point. I don't want to belabor anything. It's just like really cool having you guys here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Alan.
Is there anything that you want to shout out? Anything coming up? Anything that you're doing? Please do.
Oh my gosh. On my way here, actually. So there's this creative organization called Hotspot Creatives.
Okay.
They're based in the Bay. They're based in New York. They pull together like creative people who don't necessarily have access to like each other, or like resources and stuff. They're coming out with their first published magazine, like printed magazine. So I actually have a feature in it, and the interview came out today.
Let's go.
It was filmed in a plant nursery, so the setting is like
perfect.
really beautiful. Yeah.
Yo.
So that's available on Hotspot Creatives Instagram. I'm hosting a Kokodama workshop here at Baba's house on the 28th in 2 weeks. What else? Oh, I have a plant party series called Groove and Grow, so that's coming up as well. We don't have a date for that yet, but if you want to follow Hotspot Creatives or Taiwanese Noodles is myself on Instagram.
Let's go.
That's where I like to share first. And I have a lot of like creative projects just slowly rolling out this year that I'm really excited about. A lot of it has to do with like I'm modeling in a lot of them, creative directing them as well.
I just followed you on my way back over to the shop.
Oh yeah.
And so I took a look at your Instagram. And I'm like, oh shit, she got some like people taking some photos. That's dope.
Thanks.
You know what I mean? I don't know if they're different people or if it's the same person, or you know what I mean? You got an IG husband now. It looks like you're getting these professionally done, and like
nice.
I don't mean to generally comment on the image or whatever, but it looks.
I mean, you can.
But it looks like something that's very deliberate that you're doing. It looks like you're taking a lot of pride in your image.
Thank you.
And I know that's kind of like a weird, like, I don't know, it has a weird shade to it in today's terms where I say like you take pride in your image, but I really mean it. And I think that like we already established, you built everything up yourself. Right? Obviously a community is involved, right? In a lot of different ways, but you have done this. So I think it's dope that you're really taking ownership of that image and you're really living that image instead of like, now that I've talked to you, I know for a fact that you're not just one of these people like renting out like like a seat on a private jet that doesn't take off, so you could take pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like not that.
Yeah.
That's really you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
And that's
you.
dope.
Yeah, I try to treat everything in life as an art. Like I used to say that I live artistically.
Let's go. That's okay. So the
before
reason
I went back to making art.
Sorry. I just got really excited because I used to actually ask that question to everybody on the podcast.
What was the question?
If you could live your life as you approach your art, would you change anything? But it seems like your answer is, I don't know if it is, but it seemed like you're living your life as your art.
Yeah.
You literally just said that.
I
right?
do. Yeah. I infuse my intentions and my morals with everything that I touch.
Amen.
And I don't always get it right, but I try really hard, and I think people are responding to that, which feels nice.
That's dope. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey. All right. Cool. So, this is Baba's house. Let me throw up the. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Let's see if we got any. If you guys have any suggestions in the chat, as usual, for us to rate out to.